Hello and welcome back to the SC Blueprint podcast for the first episode in 2026. I'm joined here with Ben. Am I right?
Yeah. How you going today, Elliot?
Yeah, good, thank you. Very well. Dan?
How you going, mate?
Yeah, good, thank you. And today we're just going to have a look through a couple of the most expensive players in SC for the 2026 NRL season. And we're just going to go through and tell us our thoughts. I'll kick us off with James Tedesco. I'm not really that high on Teddy. I mean, great player. Been the top of the SuperCoach leagues for many seasons. However, I'm just not that hot on him this year with Cherry Evans joining the club, joining the halves. I have no idea what that halves combo is going to look like. Do you have any thoughts, Ben?
Yeah, I think if we look back to Manly last season when Cherry Evans was playing on that right side, it sort of turned Turbo away from sweeping to the right a lot of times. And I think that's really crucial because Teddy's preferred side is that sweep out the back through the hands with Toya and Mark. And so I think we could definitely look to lose a bit of Teddy points there, and especially with the updates with the scoring system as well, losing that try assist that usually goes to the overlap man and is now going to go to that last pass. I think Toya might grab a few of his try assists, which would obviously be a bit detrimental for him. But on the other hand, here's James Tedesco. He's been consistent for years. Every year we count him out. We say he's not going to perform. Last year, I know I was a skeptic at the start, and by the end of it, I had him in my team for about 20 weeks. So,
Yeah, definitely.
Just to give some numbers on those assists changing. So he's going to lose 5 assists from last season, go down from 26 to 21, based on his stats from last season. And for line break assists, he's going to lose 9, going down from 34 to 25. So those are some of the more significant drops. But as you did say, he is still Tedesco. He does always find a way. I do think I'm just deterred enough based on this drop in output and the new halves pairing. It just feels like a bit of a wild card at the Roosters until we work out what's going on there.
Just to add to that as well, I think if he was 750k, I'd jump at the opportunity. But just that extra 110k this year at fullback is definitely a bit of an upside. Like, there's upside in other areas. So front row forward, hooker, all those, way more options there, and people that are getting a boost this year actually from the new scoring system. So
Just quickly as well, if I can add to that. Based on, I just think his price will go down. Start with New Zealand in New Zealand, pretty tough game. Then against the Rabbitohs, who we think will be good. Penrith, and then Manly's a bit of an easy game, and then a bye into the Sharks in round 6. So I think you just buy him later if he ends up looking good.
Absolutely. Enough. Don't think he'll play Origin either. So if he drops to around that 700k mark, it's a pretty easy swap over from Kinney maybe, someone like that who goes up a fair bit.
Yeah.
That sounds about right. Yeah, there's plenty of mid-range options as well in like the Kinneys, if Trey Fuller gets there, Folongo, all the rest. So, yeah, definitely.
Definitely. All right. Next player we're going to talk about, the big man, Payne Haas. There's honestly not much that needs to be said with Payne Haas. He's an elite option. He has been for ages. Last season, 8 scores, over 90. So he's just a pretty safe and reliable captain, which I think is what lots of us are planning on doing at the start of the year, slapping the C on Payne Haas every week if you miss on your VC loop and just rolling with that. Sure, he's expensive. What's that number there for his price? 850 something?
852.7.
852. So not cheap, but I think you know what you're paying for. You're paying for consistency. You're paying for someone who still has upside and someone who doesn't even need minutes to do it. Some of these massive scores he's getting in sub 60-minute games still managed to get 90 or 100 scores. So kind of feels hard to go against Payne Haas at this moment.
I think it's definitely going to sound rogue, but I think he's actually underpriced. I saw some stats saying that with the new tackle system being recorded by NRL.com, his scoring, his average for last year would actually have been 90.4, which is just ridiculous to think about. And so I think a big one for that, for me, is just, if that's his average, you just put the captaincy ban there for the first 10 to 12 weeks. When Origin season comes around, pretty easy side grade to whatever premium forward does not get picked for Origin, basically.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, Payne Haas, he's been in and out of my team all sort of pre-season of SuperCoach. Honestly, like, Payne Haas, a warm hug, he feels like. He's just great. He's a staple. I was worried about him being priced too highly, but I think, yeah, as Ben said, probably slightly underpriced in the new scoring system. But yeah, you just set him and forget him. Chuck the C-band on him and happy days. Kind of float him around there, yeah.
Just some more stats for those tackles he's going to gain. So he's going to gain an extra 93 tackles from last year, which is an extra 15% of tackles.
Yeah, that's
so cool. Pretty significant increase there.
And especially if he plays around that consistent 60-minute mark this year. There was a few games definitely at the start of the year last year where his minutes were probably a bit more managed than they were They may be at the start of the season. Obviously, last season with the Broncos, I think there's definitely room that they just push him to his limits, trying to get that premiership again, back to back. So, yeah, I think he's a great option. Even if they drop his minutes slightly, as Dan definitely pointed out, I think he is a great option either way. He can still score big in quiet games. It's just his power goes through the roof, obviously.
Definitely.
Awesome.
Moving on to Reece Walsh next, actually, a fellow Bronco. Obviously, an absolute masterclass from Reece towards the back end of last year in the final series. But it is important to note with him that his average with Reynolds is considerably less. Now, Reece obviously likes to sweep to both sides of the field, but I think when Reynolds runs the game, quite often they find themselves with a short side on that right edge. And I think for that reason, Reece might not quite be the option we're looking for this year. I think he's priced at 835, 600. It's quite high. Goal kicking's up in the air. I'd say Reynolds probably retains the goal kicking. And if he's not goal kicking, that's going to be even more points off him. To add to that as well, he will lose try assists and line breaks. Dan, do you have the stats on?
Yeah. So he'll lose 3 assists from last year, and he'll lose 7 line break assists from last year.
Yeah.
So a cumulative 92 total points he's going to lose from last year. So it's not nothing.
Yeah. And I think, again, someone else that I would be more than happy to trade in later. I just don't think I need to start with him. I think there's more value for money at other positions this year rather than paying up at a fullback.
Yeah, and definitely with him being priced at the 835k, he goes, his first 3 rounds are Panthers at home, Parramatta at home, Melbourne at home, obviously 3 hard fixtures. But then as of round 4, he goes Finns at home, Gold Coast obviously away, Cowboys at home, who are defensively not really present, and then West Tigers. So that's 4 great fixtures for him once he's dropped that, I don't know, anywhere from 50 to 100k or whatever. And
If
then
not
just,
more.
Yeah, if not more even. And then just bang, he's happy days. As we know, Reece Walsh, he's an electric player. He might be on 40 to 50 at the 70-minute mark and then end on 80 to 100. So just a great player to watch, but definitely at that price point, too expensive to start the season with.
Just to touch on that as well, I'd say at no point in his career thus far has Reece Walsh been the figure of consistency. You either get 120 from him or you get 30, and there's really no in between, especially if he's not goal kicking. If he's goal kicking, you can probably presume he'd average at least 50 a game. But the big scores are what keeps his average high. I think just for the first little bit of the season, you probably want more consistent players who are just going to roll you in nicely, and then towards the back end is when you trade in those riskier players. Obviously a shoe-in as well if he stays fit for Origin this year. And so I think for that reason, I'm probably going to avoid him. Might look to bring him in for the easier schedule. Possibly even wait till after the Origin period for me. So yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, cool. And moving into our next player, we've got SuperCoach halfback giant Nathan Cleary. He's just proved it in the SuperCoach realm, in the NRL realm. He's just an elite halfback. Been in our teams, obviously, at the back end. He's a keeper if you can get him there. But in terms of starting the season, he's 826k, pretty pricey. And then if you look a little bit deeper into his draw, he's got Broncos at Suncorp, Sharks, Roosters, Parramatta, Melbourne, Bulldogs. Those are really tough fixtures. So honestly, that's those first 6 rounds are enough to turn me off Nathan Cleary and just kind of let that play out in a similar fashion to potentially Reece Walsh, and what Ben was saying is leave him till after Origin. Dan, do you have any thoughts?
He really doesn't take much of a hit, stats-wise, with the new system. So he only lost 2 try assists and 3 line break assists. So only 48 points in total lost there. I've currently got Cleary in my team. I just think you start him, you leave him until maybe Origin. Maybe he doesn't even get picked for Origin. Who knows with the Blues. I think you've definitely pointed out he's got a hard draw to start the year, which is very, very true. I think he just excels in those games anyway. I'm thinking back to Magic Round against the Broncos when he ripped up. I'm thinking back to those games on the run to the finals. That's just when he excels, when he's backs against the wall in those bigger games.
I'd say on that particularly, when the going's easy, the Panthers tend to favour the left side. And we'll talk about some players later on who are on that left side who will get favoured. But I do think that in the harder games, Nathan Cleary really has to step up because there's no one else in the team that can do what he can do. I think that Cleary Dylan Edwards link up in those tough games on that right edge is just so crucial. And with him sweeping both sides of the field, I think he's almost, for me, kind of a must to start the season. I just don't think there's many other halfbacks that aren't as badly affected by this change as Nathan Cleary. I think the change will be good, and especially, obviously, talks at the moment around different scoring systems. Maybe the runs get added to SuperCoach. If that's the case, he draws the line so much that he's probably going to end up basically back where he was. I wouldn't think it's too rogue to think he'd get back those 48 points in runs. So I think definitely something to consider and look at a little bit. But I think for me, honestly, you have Nathan Cleary, you have Payne Haas. That's probably your VC and captain every week. So more than happy to pay up there.
Yeah, probably agree. Are we just going to keep going down this list, or do we want to jump around and pick some more interesting options?
We might jump around a bit.
Yeah, let's do a jump.
I'm gonna bring one out then. I'm gonna talk about Dylan Lucas. Now, I haven't really seen Dylan Lucas bouncing around too many teams in the preseason. Does someone have his ownership nearby? I'll keep talking while someone pulls that up. Base and power merchant.
Currently owned at 6%.
6%, lower than I thought it would be for sure. Base power merchant often goes above 60, most of the time above 50. So you almost get your value from there. Loves a try, loves an assist, works hard, plays 80 almost every single time. I think he's an absolute gun. It's a lot to spend. What is it? Just over 747? Something around
744.
there? 744. It's a lot to spend, but I think he is probably one of the Knights' best attacking weapons in terms of like scoring tries. Obviously, and then obviously to say that as well, he's got a lot of creativity around him. Ponga, Dylan Brown, Sharp, or Sandon Smith, whatever ends up happening there. There's going to be people who are going to get him the ball. And I just think he's a threat. I think he's an absolute weapon.
I think my rebuttal to that is I kind of have 2 points on it. The first one is there's just so many good options this year at second row, sorry. And I think it's kind of a test to the new scoring system somewhat. Like, do you go down the path of grabbing some locks who play 80 and will make 1,000,000 tackles and will probably gain 5 to 6 tackles every game from the new scoring system? Do you go towards some high power second row forwards? I think for me with Dylan Lucas, he is very expensive. And when you can get a bloke like David Fafita or someone like that, Jermaine McEwen, at almost half the price, I think it's just a little bit too much for me to put him in my team, I guess. And then the other point for that as well is I just think there's a little bit too much doing on that left edge now. With the halves pairing up in the air, if it is the Sharp, Dill Brown, I just don't know who there is going to take control of the game. So my fear is if that is the combination they go with, I'm a little bit worried the Knights might slip back into some old habits and start quite slow to the year. I think if Sandon Smith's there, he's obviously an out-and-out 7, but I don't think either of Dylan Brown or Fletcher Sharp are out-and-out 7s, and particularly they're both left edge playmakers. So you've not really got... Someone's going to have to shift to the right. They both run the ball a lot. They're both going to want the ball a lot. Kind of relying on Ponga to tie it all together there. And most of the time he'll be sweeping out the back of Dylan Lucas, which is my fear.
Yeah, fair enough. Dylan Lucas for me is another one I've kind of toyed with. I've kind of looked at interchanging Tino, who's currently in my team with him. But yeah, he's an interesting one. I definitely have currently a little bit of cash to work with, so I might just kind of think about it a bit more. But honestly, it's exactly what you guys have said. Super, super reliable, good base, and does like to nab a try. And with a lot of attack around him in all of the names we've already said, it's pretty appealing to me.
Yeah, bouncing around a little bit. I think we'll talk about Scott Drinkwater. I think fullback this year is a really, really difficult position. Whether you go two mid-range options, maybe a Sewer and a Kinney, or a Kinney and a Fuller if he gets the role, or you pop Tom Chester, who's basically a shoo-in at this point to start round one from all accounts. Obviously has the injury, but they've confirmed that he will be back for round one. Unlikely to play any of the trial matches, however. I think he's just too good of an option to put at fullback, especially with a lot of fullbacks losing those try assists. And none of them are hit, or not many are hit quite as hard as Scott Drinkwater. I think he loses... How many try assists is it, Dan?
11. Oh, sorry, that's line break assists. Lose 11 line break assists and 6 try assists.
That is
so a total of 160 points.
160 points over the course of the season is quite a big
So like
difference.
7 points a game you're losing.
Yeah. And I think for me that's just enough to deter me. I think the halves pairing there as well is quite uncertain. If Purdue turns up in the halves, he does like to run the ball a lot, take the line on, which is to his credit. But I think that might keep the ball out of Scott Drinkwater's hands a bit. He obviously has the goal kicking, which is good for him. But I just think at 793,000, that's a bit of a miss for me, I think.
Yeah, well, honestly, I do tend to agree, and obviously I was a bit more hot on him but in the old scoring method to start this season. But I've got it here. He scored 1,947 Supercoach points last season, and he was a top 3 player. Even if he loses 160, he's still a top 6 player in the league. So I don't know. Maybe we're being a little bit too critical on him. Obviously, it just depends how the season kind of pans out. But honestly, he's still a fantastic player. He's got a goal kick. Cowboys have always been good.
Yeah, to try to present that alternate angle, he is probably the Cowboy. Not probably, he probably is the Cowboys' best creative player and most like reliable creative threat.
Yeah.
So he'll still retain that. He does have goal kicking, which not many fullbacks do. In saying that, I think there are just enough red flags to deter me. The mix of Purdue in the halves being a little bit unreliable with Drinkwater in the past.
True.
The mix of the Cowboys maybe being up for a little bit of a rough season. And now the new scoring system kind of nuking his points a little bit. I think it's just enough red flags to get me off him. I was so hot on him all preseason as well.
Yeah, definitely.
I definitely think the Cowboys will take a bit of a hit this year. They're going to struggle for a bit of depth at forwards with the forwards, and obviously they've had their defensive issues over the last 2 years. So I think they might be towards the bottom half of the table this year, I'd say, which is probably just enough to make me think Drinkwater's not quite what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, and let's move into absolute Supercoach gun territory. Herbie Farnworth and that left centre spot for the Dolphins. Honestly, I hated Herbie. I was with a couple of the other creators around the grounds kind of saying steer away from Herbie, he's too overpriced, he'll bomb your team. To kind of now just adding him in. Like I'm kind of quite hot on Herbie now with the new sort of scoring method and how he's going to gain the possibility to gain more assists and all the rest. I know you lads aren't as hot on him. Only what was the stat there of he would be gaining in assists?
So he's gained 5 assists and 5 line breaks assists.
Yeah, there you go. So I'm still keen on him. I think the Dolphins somewhat regress in attack. Like I think the statistics on how many points they scored last season was something like the most amount of points since COVID or something like that. So there's always that, but I don't know. I'm quite keen on him. I think it's too scary to go without him, in my opinion. I just want to put him in my team, VC him every week. Captain Payne Haas. There's your bread and butter.
Yeah, he is definitely a good option. I'll try to play a little bit of devil's advocate. I mean, the obvious protocol is the price. Very expensive. You could argue he's earned it based off last season, definitely. But as you did point out, the Dolphins' attack, I don't think it's a very controversial opinion that they'll regress to some degree this year.
Yeah.
I think that Dolphins left edge still is their best edge, yes. I just think it does feel hard to argue with. It's just another one that just soaks up a lot of cash.
Yeah,
I think
for
he
sure.
just feels like a person who there are decent options below him where I can go down. Like if you go Payne Haas down to someone in the 600 range, it feels like a massive drop. Whereas if you go down a Herbie there's lots of people in that 600 range, like your Bradman Bess, Taylor Mays, a couple other guys we might talk about later. I just think there are more options, and that's just a port of call to potentially gain cash in my perspective. I definitely think he is a strong option though.
I agree. I think he's an absolutely great option. Similar to Dan, my fear is just around, like, he may gain the try assist. I think they'll score less points. That pretty much averages him out. I think there's a lot to be gained of picking up a few players at that 600 price range who are going to gain a hell of a lot more assists than Herbie Farnworth does. I also think for me, they've got a really good start to the year. So the first 3 rounds for them is obviously South Sydney, which I think will be an improved side, but I do think that game will be high scoring. They've got Newcastle and West Tigers. So 3 teams that are going to see some sharp improvement this year, but I do think that they're going to be high-scoring affairs. But then they go Broncos. They have Gold Coast Titans, which will, again, be an easy draw, but it goes Broncos, Gold Coast, Panthers, Melbourne, Canberra at Canberra, and then Sydney Roosters. So I don't know if I would want to hold him across that period. However, if you pick him up after round 9, he has Parramatta away, New Zealand at Suncorp, the Bulldogs, then he has his bye, but then he goes St. George, North Queensland, Newcastle, South. So I think if you maybe grab him, price depending, for that Parramatta game, hold him through the bye and play him afterwards, or you grab him after that first Origin round bye, and you go St. George, North Queensland, Newcastle, South. I think that's just too good of a run for me. I don't think he'll hold at 825k that whole time. So, yeah, I think
definitely.
I think a player I would be willing to upgrade to, but I think it could become a side grade from some of the other centres that are currently priced around that 630k range.
Yeah, completely fair enough points. And I think with Herbie, it's just like a bit of an opinion-based sort of thing, just whether you want to take the punt on him, whether he's going to stay at those 2025 heights or whether he's going to drop a bit and then get him for a discounted price, definitely.
Yeah. All right. I'm going to go into Kale. Now, this is obviously another one as a big result of the change to the try assist. Let me pull up his numbers quickly in terms of change. That's right, Kale didn't play that many games last season, but even still, he's still going to gain 2 try assists and 2 line break assists. So not nothing you'd imagine over a larger sample size that will multiply. Just a try scoring beast. That Sharks left edge is dominant. There's been minimal change to that side that I can think of, if any, except Stone Street on the left wing, but I don't think it's much of a change from Ronaldo. I think Kale will either be scoring it or tipping it onto Stone Street. Not as strong a base power as you'd want. Kind of operates around that mid 40s to mid 50s mark, which is a tad low. So you are kind of relying on tries and try involvements to some extent, but I just think he gets them. I think I'll probably start him in my team. I just think he's too strong. They also have a very good draw to start the year. Don't have it in front of me.
If Gold Coast, Penrith, which is going to be a tough game, but then they go Dolphins, Canberra, New Zealand, away from home, so New Zealand at Shark Park, and then Sydney Roosters, North Queensland, which is not the greatest draw in the world, but it's definitely better than some of the other options.
It's not horrendous, which I think is enough for me.
Yeah, I agree.
I think my downside for KLR is that Trindle's edge. He does love throwing the cutout ball to the winger. And I think under the new scoring system, you kind of want your centres that are tap-on merchants. So I know for one that we probably won't talk about today, but Stephen Crichton, big person who always gets the ball and then tips it on, draws that winger defender. Whereas I think sometimes playing against the Sharks, teams tend to jam in on KLR, which helps him score a lot of tries, obviously, but it does also mean that it unlocks that cutout ball for Trindle, and I think he's just not going to gain quite as many try assists as people think he might.
Yeah, I probably agree with you there with the try assist sort of a thing, but I think he's just been a staple of that Sharks left edge attacking side, and that's obviously their favourite edge whenever they go down there. But he just always loves to punch that short line, and he just always seems to score. I know I was really hot on him last year. I brought him in around midway through that season. I think then he sustained an injury, and then I think I got him back in towards the end. But he was a really good player. Pretty good base, I think. Better power, better tackle bust. So I think he does get up there, and obviously the tries help, but I just think he'll be even better this year with the scoring system.
I agree.
I guess one more thing for me is just he did average for the start of the year a try a game. Is he going to hold that through a whole nother season?
But this is the question we were begging halfway through last season, and
It
it
is
just
true.
seemed to keep happening. I think the Sharks' attack is just too good on that left side.
I tend to agree. I also think that with the off-season, teams definitely have ways to work out ways around it.
Yeah, it's a very
they'll be
valid
doing
point.
their research. They'll be working out what they can do. And most teams prefer to get cut on the outside than through the guts. And so if their wingers just holding off on him like they had last season, surely they're going to change something. I don't know. I'm happy to be proved wrong. I think he is a great option still. I just don't know if there's a huge amount of upside from his price at the moment, which I think there is with some other players.
I think it's a similar argument for Herbie, though, and Herbie's just 150k cheaper.
Yeah.
Sorry, more expensive.
Yeah. But I think Herbie is a slightly more attacking player. I think he his ability to win 2-on-1s, like he does break the line so much more than Iro.
He's a bigger body.
Iro's very good close to the line. He runs great lines, but I don't know if he has that full field range that Herbie has. So
Yeah, valid points. Fair enough.
the last one I'm going to talk about today is obviously Terrell May. I think obviously the number 2 front row forward player. I think for me, even though he has that round 1 bye, if you're looking to pod yourself somewhere, not the worst pod to have against Payne Haas. Obviously, there's the trade news with Haas to South Sydney. I think there's potential that they start looking towards the back end of the season at reducing his minutes and giving some other young guns a go in preparation for him leaving. And I think Payne Haas's minutes will be very determined on how the Broncos are going. If they're pretty comfortable in the top 4 and they're not really in that title contention, then I think there's a chance he might get rested towards the back end of the season. I know it's looking quite a fair way down the line, but Terrell May also a snub for Origin last year. Whether he'll get picked again, I don't know. If he doesn't, that's a great player to have during those Origin bye rounds, just a safe captaincy option similar to Payne Haas. And I think if you don't have the faith in Payne Haas that the 3 of us obviously do, then Terrell May's not a bad option. You just sit him for the first week, you play like a Trey Mooney or someone like that, and then you've obviously got him from round 2 onwards. So yeah.
Yeah. I completely agree. I think don't let the bye scare you off. If you do really have some faith in Terrell May, that he's going to be that amazing player that he was last year, then just go for him. Yeah, it's play that Trey Mooney in round 1 and just punch it out from there.
Gained an extra 100 tackles, or would have gained an extra 100 tackles from the stats change last year, which is about 11% of his total. So a significant boost. I'm in agreement. I think he's still a big minute player. I think the Tigers forward pack isn't strong enough for him to move into like a 60-ish minute role. I still think he'll probably be 80 or 70 plus. I think he's very solid. I think there's minimal to say against him, except for just he doesn't have as much upside as Payne Haas. I don't think that's very controversial.
Yeah, I agree with that.
But very strong player. Very strong player. Probably will own him for a significant chunk of the year at some stage.
Yeah, I do think the I guess pros and cons of each of them are slightly different. Payne Haas obviously has that power and that the try scoring ability that is shown. Terrell May probably less power based, but obviously plays more minutes than Payne Haas, which means under the new scoring system he's gonna rack up more tackles. So I think there's a trade-off with both. I personally lean more towards Payne Haas. I'd rather spend the extra 20k and have someone round 1. But if you don't have the faith in Payne Haas, definitely not the worst option to go to a Terrell May. So yeah. All right, so that I think pretty much wraps up our talk about. That was definitely some of the players we're more interested in, or a really strong avoid in the top 20. I think there's other players there that are definitely up in contention, but probably less on the radar for us.
Just some of the more interesting talking points.
Yeah, absolutely. If you do want us to talk about any of the other players in that top 20, jump over to the Instagram, put a comment on one of the posts. More than happy to explain it through if you are looking for some stats or anything like that on other players. I think what we'll move on to now is sort of what we like to call my guys, which is the players we've sort of been hot on for a while. We think that don't have a lot of ownership. Someone a good pod that we really think will have a bit of a breakout season. So I'll actually throw to Elliot first for his first my guy.
Cool. My first my guy is none other than Jaden Campbell, JC, from the Gold Coast Titans. I have been so hot on this guy all through preseason. I've pretty much had him in my team for the whole time of the team builder. He hasn't really left at all. But I'm super keen on this guy. I think he's a nice little pod option that people might overlook, that where they go for a Cleary or a Hines or even like a discounted Moses or whatever. But I think that JC kind of flies under the radar a little bit. I think his average last season was 72, I believe. And I don't exactly have the stats on me, but I believe without injury-affected games, it might even jump up to about 76 or so. I'm just going to keep chatting while our fact checker over there gets onto that. But honestly, super keen on him. I think he has a strong running game, which is going to suit the scoring system as well. I think he loves to score tries. He loves to hunt around the middle. He's just an electric player. Like I guess he's a bit of a more solid version of Reece Walsh in the sense that he could just kind of be on 40 or so whenever he's kind of halfway through the game, and then just score a try or break the line or have a couple of tackle busts and just accumulate points. So yeah.
Yeah, so a 76.2 average in 80-minute plus games.
Yeah, and for me that's really appealing. He's priced at his 711 K. I'm just super keen on that. Just plug him in the team. He's not going to play Origin.
Minimal losses from the scoring change as well. He only lost 1 line break assist and 2 try assists.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I want to hear. Kind of. I just think honestly, it'll come from his running game. Just the way he just breaks tackles, his power, all the rest.
I think it is sort of important to note for players that maybe haven't quite done some of the research we've obviously had the luxury to do. And that is that the new scoring system obviously rewards that last pass. So your ball running halves are going to be the greatest options. So your Nico Hines, your Jaden Campbell, people like that are going to lose the least. Obviously, that's something to definitely factor in, and probably why fullbacks are probably the most impacted by this change, is because they do run the ball a lot, but quite often they're the third last pass. So the second last pass or the third man before the try is scored on the wing. So I think that's definitely something to note. For me, to Jaden Campbell's credit, pretty good start to the year. So he's obviously got the Sharks first up, which tough fixture, but will be probably a high-scoring affair, I'd say, at Shark Park. He's then got the Dolphins, North Queensland, St. George, Broncos at Seabus, and Parramatta. And I think that's a pretty ripping start to the year, personally.
I'd imagine most of them in Queensland as well.
Absolutely. So, yeah. North Queensland, St. George, and Broncos all at Seabus. The Dolphins is at Suncorp, obviously. And then they've got the one game at Shark Park and the one game away to Parramatta as well. So I think, a great start to the year. I think there's a lot of opportunities there. Heat of the day sort of games. The Gold Coast Titans Broncos game at Seabus always seems to find its way to a Sunday afternoon heat of the day. Usually a little 36-30 sort of gig. So I think in those sort of games is where Jaden Campbell really excels. Got the goal kicking as well, so definitely something to factor in. And he's going to have to take over the kicking game this year. Obviously lost Foran to retirement. Kinney at the back. Probably Brimson in the other half to start the season. And so I think he's going to have to take over a lot of the kicking. So not only is he going to be able to run the ball to the same level, but he'll also take on some try assists from kicking. So, yeah, definitely someone I'm thinking about. I'm just sort of debating whether you just pay up for Cleary. But, yeah.
Anyone want to guess his current ownership?
I'm going to guess around that 6%.
I think it could be less. I reckon maybe like 3%.
3.9%.
Wow, yeah.
Hello. Bit of a pod. Lovely.
Out of interest, how much is Moses owned at? Because I think a lot of people are on Moses, and I was extremely on him, but I think I'm kind of leaning away from him now.
Mitchell Moses is 25.9% at the moment. I think that will continue to go down, though.
Absolutely.
Lovely. I'm going to jump into my guy. I've been talking about him for ages now, Toby Couchman. I think it's his year. I think it's his breakout year. I think he might finally have an injury-free year. He's been struggling with that for a while now, poor bugger. But I just think he's a big-minute player if he can stay on the field. That Dragons forward pack is not blowing me away in terms of its quality, in terms of quality depth. They'll probably have to do some kind of bench rotations. We're talking about Jacob Helengahu or Leilua ending up on the bench. That's going to have to work out somehow. They'll probably carry a Jacob Little for the most part. So I think someone's going to have to play big minutes. We've talked about it might be Stewart. I think it's going to be Couchman. And if he does, he's going to be a gun. Big minute games last year, so 60 plus minutes, averaged 70 flat, and he's priced at a 58.
Absolutely.
Currently owned by, let me just find it. Currently owned by, cannot see him. I think it's around, there he is, 16.4%. Wouldn't necessarily call it a pod to the same extent as Campbell, but I've loved him since the start. I think he's good. I think he's going to be a gun, and he's one of my first players on every team I build.
Absolutely, and I think this year isn't the year you go pay Nas Terrell May like last year. I think this is the year you look for someone a bit cheaper, and I think Couchman's a great option. I guess leading on from that, Stefano Uto Ikamanu is another great pickup, and I think the reason for that is, in my eyes, he can't get any less minutes this year. He's going to play at least 50 minutes this year. And I think the upside was there. We saw it at the back end of the season. He started playing more minutes. He started having more power and base. And I think something's got to give. They've obviously lost Big Nelson. And I think for that reason, he's just got to step up. There's not really many other options in that forward pack. Trent Liero suspended for the first two season games for the shoulder charge in the grand final. I think they're going to be carrying an inexperienced bench for most of the year. I think he's going to step up his minutes. I think he's going to keep scoring tries. He's a big body and a threat close to the line. Obviously got the best attacking hooker in the game running him round. So I think there's definitely room for improvement there. And Melbourne really haven't lost too many. Obviously they had Ryan Papenhuyzen step down, which is obviously really sad for them. But Sewer is ready and raring to go. And played really well in the couple of games he played last year for Papenhuyzen. I don't think they've really lost a lot. They've lost Grant Anderson and Elliot, which are big losses, but Lasardi looked good when he played for them. And obviously, if Will Warwick comes back, that's an easy shift for Jack Howarth and Nick Meaney back into the centres together. I think they're going to still have a pretty complete team, and the middle pack is going to be on him, basically. So, yeah.
Yeah, nice.
Any thoughts on Stefano and Couchman, since Elliot didn't get to talk about Couchman?
Yeah, true. Well, I'll give you a little quick snippet on both of them. But yeah, Couchman at that price, at that 588k for me, he just feels like a little bit too expensive out of that sort of low 500 option. Also, I guess I'm a little bit worried about the rotation in the Dragons forward pack. They seem to have a couple kind of floating around there, and then obviously when Dylan Egan comes back mid-season, like what does that look like for Hamish Stewart? What does that look like for Toby Couchman, Josh Kerr, and other options in there? But for me, honestly, a good option, but I haven't really considered him that highly. But for Stefano, though, he's definitely my team. I think at a low 517k or whatever. 515. But yeah, super keen on him. I think we saw, obviously, to the back end of last year and in SC finals how he kind of went. And it was pretty good. Bellamy kind of was pretty hot on him.
I think something of a debate this year is how you use your flex. And so I think me and Dan, in talking a little bit, have tossed up the idea of putting Payne Haas as your flex player this year. That way when Origin rolls around, it's a pretty easy side grade to another high-ranking player. And if that's the case, you do have room for Stefano and Toby Couchman. But if you're not going to put Payne Haas at flex, I don't think you have the money or the need to get all three of them there. There's great bench front row forward options in your Pasekas, your Jesse Calhouns, and some other players around that range. Trey Mooney, might I add. And so, yeah, I think if you're not going to put your Payne Haas at your flex, probably don't grab both. But if you are, definitely something to consider.
Stefano at 4.1% as well. What are people thinking?
Yeah. I think because so many people were hurt last year by him, everyone, including myself, started the year with him, and then he just didn't really do what we expected him to do.
Yeah, it did hurt.
Cool. And that, I guess that brings me into my guy, which is none other than Taylor May.
Taylor May.
One of the T's. Taylor, Tyrone, and Terrell, I think they are.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyway, sorry, the CTW version of Team A. But no, I'm keen on him. Also, obviously, we stated in the podcast earlier with Terrell that the round one bye is a little bit of a worry. But no, I'm keen on him. I think he's a fantastic player, priced at 617. I think his average was slightly higher than that last season. Maybe a 70 odd, I think.
I think so. I think he had 300
70
in
average.
a row, actually. And yeah, especially for a target side that wasn't doing a lot, that's pretty incredible.
Yeah, definitely. I think it was just a weapon when he came in, only playing the handful of games. But yeah, priced at that 617 with obviously that 70 average. He has the potential to explode, I think, this season. Full preseason under his belt, and yeah, I think Benji will get him playing well. Obviously, to consider, as with every player, but the scoring change obviously heavily favours centres, and him being a left centre, I think he'll really take advantage from that.
I guess the only thing I can see in the future that might be a bit of a worry for other people is just that he didn't play many games, only played the 7 matches. Is he going to be able to hold that average across a full season? We all think with the new scoring system, yes. But obviously, I don't think it's rogue to be a bit wary of him. And so, yeah.
Well, on that, he only played 7 games. He would have gained 3 try assists and 4 line break assists.
Which is just pretty amazing.
Pretty good return across 7 games.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Also, 4.7%. So, another really lowly owned player. All right, my second and final, my guy, Jermaine McEwen. Again, not the most roguest of pick. I think he's around that 50% mark as well. I just think he's in for a stellar year. Priced at 400k. And in games over 65 minutes last year, he averaged 56. And I think he only got 1 try and 1 assist in those games. So I just think he's an absolute gun. He just looks good when he moves as well. Bit of eye test. I'm usually a stats guy, just a bit of eye test. He just looks good. I think Kai Pearce-Paul was impressive on that right edge, but he wasn't someone that was getting put through a lot of holes. He doesn't have the best footwork necessarily, not the most agile, just a big body. I think McEwen's going to bring a little bit more of that agility and try-scoring presence, so I think he's in for a big year.
I tend to agree. I think the difficulty this year is where you spend your money. If you're going to start him, I think he's a great option, even if he's that reserve or fourth, second row forward. But if you're just putting him in there to gain cash, I think there's better options this year, I'll note. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Nah, I'm a fan of him. I wasn't previously, and then he's been in my team ever since, I believe, at about 407k. Yeah, I like it. I think, that the point of KPP being as a somewhat quiet underachiever, but a solid super coach option last year really does give me like
Hope for that
kind of just that
that role.
Kind of punch through 80 minutes on the edge there, be a solid player. I think he's good. Got a lot of upside. So yeah.
Absolutely. All right, I think we'll finish off with someone who I think might fly under the radar a little bit for people, and that's Casey McLean. Currently owned at 9%. Played the 20 matches in 2025. Had an average of 66.8. I think he really showed what he was about towards the back end of the year. Obviously had a great Pacific Nations season as well. I think there was one match they had three tries, 4 tries, something like that, which was just pretty incredible to watch. Obviously doing it against some of the best of the Pacific. So I think for me, he's a great option, and especially with centers gaining as much as they are, I think he's going to be awesome. To'o is rumoured to shift to that left wing. I think that's just going to be their most destructive side. I think Cleary will do some setup play on the right, and it'll just go all the way through the hands on the left. I think he's an attacking weapon just about anywhere on the park. Saw it last year. I think he scored 2 or 3 tries off scrums, just brute forcing over players. Dominant ball runner. Not the best base, but decent base, but tackle busts, line breaks. He's got it all. So for me, I think with the increase in that left wing, with Toto like moving over to that side, I think he's going to be a great option.
Yeah. I don't have his try assist gain stats for whatever reason, but he gained 5 line break assists. So I guess you can imagine it's somewhat similar for the try assist. So yeah, I mean, I just think he's like a little mini Kale. He's the kind of guy who could get the ball and either tip it onto To'o or just run through the line and score pretty easily. I think he's one who, as you said, the base it's not a Herbie, it's not a Kiraz, but it's enough, and then he gets topped off with all those attacking stats, which will come to that Penrith left edge.
I think being a part of the Penrith attack, I don't think it's too rogue that he would get a try or a try assist a game. That'll probably be partnered with a line or line break assist. That's already 50, 60 points. All it takes is him to have an extra try. They do have the tough start to the year, but I think that he can just find a way through it. He's only 650k. Look, he's not maybe as good as Herbie, but he's definitely as good as Kale, and Kale is obviously 700k. I think he's got some upside, and honestly, I'd probably plug in there and keep him there all season. Even with Cleary, if he does go to Origin, still not Cleary's side. I think particularly last year, when Cleary was at Origin, they did sweep left a lot, so yeah.
Yeah, honestly, personally, I wasn't very hot on him at all before the scoring changes. I know of a couple creators that kind of were and were pushing him into teams and stuff, but I thought with Brian To'o there at a high 500k, I believe it was, I was thought, well, why wouldn't you go him? But I feel like why would you go Brian To'o now? If you're going to go Brian To'o, you may as well get the man inside him who's either going to get the try assists or absolutely barge over. I think he was, fantastic in the Pacific Nations, or whatever it was. And I think he's a great player. Great player to watch. I just wasn't sold on him from an SC point, but I can definitely make a point for him to be in the team this year.
I think that just about wraps it up, really, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think we're all wrapped up there. So, thanks for listening, guys. And, drop any comments or questions you have on the Instagram. We'll try to put up some clips, I guess, as we kind of get going.
Absolutely. We've also got some good statistics on averages and stuff from players last year if you want to go have a look at that. And just jump over to the Instagram. Definitely a lot more to come. It is just SC Blueprint NRL. If you're chasing that, jump over there. We'll obviously put reminders up as well about new podcasts. So hope to see you there soon. Ask your questions. Thank you.